All right, if you're a chartered accountancy student, you have spent years, and I mean years, mastering the theory. But what happens when the textbooks close and that corporate office door swings open? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dive into the critical skills you learn in the real world that you will never, ever find in your study material.
You know this one. AS10. Property, plant, and equipment. You've probably memorized every single rule on depreciation, revaluation, the whole shebang. It's second nature to you.
Or how about Section 43B, deductions on actual payment? Come on, you could probably recite that entire list of expenses without even blinking.
And of course, Schedule 3, the format for financial statements. You know exactly where every line item goes on the balance sheet and the P&L. It's all locked in up there.
Let's be real for a second. You've put in the blood, sweat, and tears. You've done the work, and your technical knowledge is razor sharp. You can absolutely cite these standards in your sleep.
But here's the kicker, the million-dollar question. Does mastering the rulebook actually mean you're ready to play the game? Because, let me tell you, the moment you step into a corporate finance team, the exam changes completely.
And this, right here, is what we call the textbook reality gap. It turns out the boardroom doesn't really care about your exam scores. What it cares about is how you perform when the pressure is on. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine it's your first week in a new corporate role. You're feeling good, you're ready to apply all that knowledge you worked so hard for, and then your manager walks over to your desk.
He drops a file on your desk, says just 5 words, "I need this MIS by 4 p.m., and then, poof, he's gone. That's it. That's your entire brief for this Management Information System report.
And just like that, you're in survival mode. There are 0 instructions, no format to follow, no senior to ask for help. Sure, you know what MIS stands for, but building one from scratch for a real business with real money on the line, that's a test you just can't study for. You just have to figure it out.
And that right there, that's what the corporate environment does. It puts you in these high-pressure situations and forces you to build skills, resourcefulness, quick thinking, real problem-solving that, an articleship might only scratch the surface of. It sharpens you into a completely different kind of professional.
So, how do you build a bridge across that gap? Well, it all comes down to learning a few unwritten rules of the corporate world. Let's break down the 5 crucial skills that really transform a CA student into a true finance pro.
Okay, lesson number 1, and this is a tough one. Speed versus accuracy. In your studies, perfection is always the goal, right? But in the corporate world, a CFO who needs your numbers at 9 a.m. for a board meeting doesn't want your perfect report at noon. You learn to be fast and right. And, more importantly, you learn how to judge which one to prioritize when you absolutely can't have both.
Number 2, you have to reframe something that's often just dismissed as a soft skill. Communication, it is not a nice-to-have. It's a core technical skill. Seriously, you will spend half your day translating complicated financial data for people in sales, in marketing, or HR. Your ability to make the complex simple is probably worth more than any certification you can get.
Next up is ownership, and this one's a biggie. During articleship, there's almost always a senior or a partner you can fall back on, like a safety net. In a corporate role, that net is gone. When that bank reconciliation doesn't tally or a GST notice lands on your desk, it's no longer someone else's problem to escalate. It is your problem to solve. And that level of accountability, well, it changes everything.
He also learned pretty quickly that finance doesn't exist on an island. You're going to be working with procurement on vendor payments, with the sales team on revenue recognition, with HR on payroll. This cross-functional exposure is absolutely priceless. See, a CA who only understands the numbers is valuable, for sure. But a CA who understands the entire business, they're 10 times more valuable.
And finally, we have pressure. The corporate calendar is just relentless. It's a never-ending cycle of deadlines. What feels like insane stress at first, slowly, believe it or not, becomes your normal rhythm. You don't just learn to survive the pressure, you learn to perform and even thrive in it. So when you start putting all these lessons together, you begin to see this shift happening. You're moving from being someone who is just technically sound, someone who knows all the rules, to someone who is genuinely essential to the business. Think about it. The people who really stand out, they aren't always the rank holders. No. They're the ones who actively seek out the real-world messes. They're the ones who raise their hand for the messy problems because they get it. That's where the real learning happens. They see how a decision made in a meeting actually translates into an accounting entry down the line.
And if you boil all of this experience down to one single powerful word, it's this: context.
Context is the massive difference between knowing how to account for a transaction and understanding why that transaction happened in the first place. This is what makes a finance professional truly indispensable.
So how do you get there? How do you earn that seat at the decision-making table? Well, the good news is you don't have to wait until you qualify. You can start building that context right now.
Here's your action plan. Start pushing for experiences beyond just the standard audit and compliance work. Ask to help with those MIS reports. If you ever get the chance, just sit quietly in a management meeting and listen. And expand your reading. Pick up a business newspaper along with your tax journals. Start connecting the dots. Because in the end, it all comes down to this. The chartered accountant who can simply account for decisions is a technician. But the one who understands why a business makes those decisions, that person is a strategist, a partner, and will always have a seat at the table where the real action happens.
So I'll leave you with a question to think about. Whether it was during your articleship or maybe your first job, what is the single most important lesson your real-world experience taught you that no textbook, no study guide ever could? Because that right there, that's where the real wisdom is.